Okay, very good. Okay, our next candidate is incumbent Celia Spitzer. Celia, welcome.
Thank you.
And first, tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've lived in the community, and a little bit about your family and how you came to Cerritos.
Okay. You're going to edit this out. Should I look at you or look there?
Just look at me.
Look at you.
Yeah, make
okay.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good just
Okay.
to look at that thing. Well, my husband and then year-and-a-half-old daughter and I moved to Cerritos in 1971, so we're amongst the old-timers here when there were still a whole lot of cows. And then we lived in one house and then we moved to another house in Cerritos. I have two very grown children, and they are both products, K-12 of our school district, Cerritos Elementary for our daughter, Leal, because we moved, for our son. They both went to Tetzlaff, and they both went to Cerritos High School. They're both college graduates. One's in Northern California, one's in San Diego. My daughter and son-in-law, she's married. We have two granddaughters who go to school in San Diego Unified. And let's see, my daughter is a pediatrician, my son-in-law is a pediatrician, and my son is, like many people right now, he's looking for a job. Hopefully, he had a job interview the other day, so hopefully that'll be.
Tell us a little bit about some of your early activities and some of the early activities that you were involved with here when you first moved to Cerritos. You said 1971?
Yes.
So tell us about what are some of the things that you've been involved with in the community.
The very first thing was in 1972. I was one of, I think there were about 5 of us that started the Tot Lot program in Cerritos. We knew about it, a great program they had in Lakewood, and we said we need that in Cerritos. And so we got together and we started that, and it actually started in the fall of 1972 when my daughter was 3. And it grew. At one point, I believe there were 4 sites of the Tot Lot program, and it completely, parent participation. There was a very small fee. So that was my first involvement in organization for children in the city. And it just sort of went from there. Then when my daughter started school when she was 5, did parent volunteer in the classroom. I went in and helped children with math. And that continued on through actually when she was in junior high. And I used to go help kids with algebra at that point. And then there was overlap with my son, and I helped in his classroom all the way through elementary school as well.
Now talk about real quick on your education background.
Okay, that's such a long time ago.
Well, you can remember.
I can remember because I'm very proud of it, because I was an out-of-state student also. I have a bachelor's degree from Berkeley, from Cal, in mathematics.
Okay, beautiful. So Jerry and I want to basically ask you some questions about the state of education here within the district and in the state, and some other issues that you've been here since you've been on the school board for a while now. So,
okay.
When were you first elected?
Okay, I was going to add that after the part when I was doing the parent volunteer kind of thing, at a point in there, I was on a number of district board advisory committees and special committees. I was on a 7-Eleven committee to decide what to do with the land adjacent to Whitney to the north of it. I was also on.
And what time was that about?
That was around 1990.
1990, okay.
No, it was around 1990.
Okay.
It was also right at that same time period between 90 and 92 on the school closure committee when there was a recommendation which the board did adopt to close 2 elementary schools. One was Melbourne, and then that property was completely demolished and commercial property was put in there in Hawaiian Gardens, and the district got a whole bunch of money on that because it was all paid off. And then was also to close Cabrillo Lane, but we knew that was very valuable property, or the board did, as did the committee, and that has always been maintained by the district with different usages in case we ever needed it for something, or down the road, who knows, that there may be a reason to sell it.
Now, you were also a member of the Planning Commission in Cerritos?
I was Cerritos Planning Commission from 1990 to 1999.
Okay.
And so that's given me a lot of knowledge about land use, which has been helpful when there was a 7-Eleven committee formed a number of years ago after I went on the board.
What is the 7-Eleven committee?
Oh, somebody asked me why that's called. It's called a 7-Eleven. It's something, if you're going to be doing something with school district property, and it's going to become something other than if it's currently school used, or it's just vacant land that's not being used at all. And if you're gonna do something other than build a school on it or build school-like facilities, you need to have a committee to basically assess all properties, not just ones you might think you want to be using. It's called the 7-Eleven Committee. Somebody in the state of California at some point came up with that name, and you have to have a minimum of 7 people on it and a maximum of 11.
I'll turn it over to Jerry now for a little bit.
Oh, okay. I know the district is facing a huge problem financially, like every other district.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen come January when the governor comes out with another allegedly revised budget?
We'll probably know something in December. What happens in January could be 2 things. One, there could be a mid-year impact, but the governor will also come out with his recommendations for the 2012-2013 fiscal year. It changes on a daily basis. I know when they came out with the final budget that we were supposed to use a few months ago, and it said, no, base it on this, base it on you're gonna get the same money as you got in 10-11. So I thought, well, that's a good thing. We'd like to see more money than we got, that it's not less. And then they thought, because they think there's gonna be enough coming, we're not gonna happen. Well, John Chung said, well, there's less money coming in, and so, but there's that magic cut point. I think if it's $4 billion less for everything, then it will start also impacting schools. There's another cutoff that wouldn't impact schools, could impact other things. Just read in the newspaper yesterday, the latest report is revenues are up again.
Yeah.
Guessing game. If the revenues are not what they're hoping they will be, and we don't hit this magic cutoff thing, then the district and the board is going to have to look potentially at other cuts.
Well, they don't. From what I read, the tax revenue that the governor anticipated isn't going to be there, and the Supreme Court has put a stay on the redevelopment agencies, where the cities that wanted to volunteer with the volunteer program so they can keep their agencies could pay the state. However, they put the stay on till January.
Right.
So
What does that do for your budget?
what does that do for your budget? I mean, I know you just explained
Well,
part of
our
it.
next budget, of course, is way down the road, but the
But this
potential
year's.
of mid-year, we just have to see what we're told in December or the beginning of January from the state. It either meets the criteria that it's more cuts, or it didn't meet the criteria that there are more cuts.
You
We
think-
have no idea.
You think there might be, is the board considering looking at the closure of one or more schools?
No, not
No,
now.
Not now.
So that's not on the table?
Well,
It might be in the future.
there are many things that could be on the table.
Mm-hmm.
In order to close a school, you have to have a school closure committee.
Yeah.
And it usually, having served on such a committee, it usually takes, depending on when you would get the people to be on the committee, what time of the year,
Yeah.
it could take anywhere from a year to a year and a half.
So it's not just,
to do that.
you can't do that in months.
Well, some districts have done in a matter of months. That's not the way ABC operates. We don't think that's fair to families.
Well, can I ask a question? Say the board was forced to make a decision on the closure of a school. How much money would you actually save?
Depends on the school.
I would imagine lower enrollment school.
Right, but the way you have to do it, when you're looking at the possibility of school closure, we were anticipating about 4 years ago that might be something we would have to look at, not because of budgetary conditions at that time, but because of declining enrollment.
Yeah, I remember.
Well, because we
Remember that,
had
yeah.
a number of years,
That's
and there
right,
was a
that's
special
right.
committee, an ad hoc committee called Demographic Study Committee, and I was the board liaison to that, and got all these numbers and hired somebody, and we assessed it, But it was like, okay, let's receive and file, let's see if this trend continues. Well, the decline stopped, and we've sort of leveled off with some slight increases. So the reason for looking potentially at school closure at that point disappeared, because declining enrollment is always a factor. I mean, that's something that can trigger declining enrollment because it saves money. If you look at the possibility of closing the school, you don't just look at one school. You have to say you're looking at possibly closing an elementary school, because there's more of those, so there are more options. You have to evaluate, in our case we have 19 elementary schools. The process is you have to evaluate all of them. You don't just single out a few that you think may be the ones.
Okay.
Because it doesn't always end up the way you think it's gonna end up, because that's what happened in 1990. One of them was very obvious, the other one was not, till we get all of our input, all of our evaluation.
What do you feel or think about the state of public education in California now?
Oh, I think public education is very good in California. It would be nice if we had more money so we could keep class sizes smaller, but I don't think that's necessarily an absolute requirement. I know when you went to school, I know when my kids went to school, kindergarten was 32 students.
That's right, yeah.
That was the norm. I mean, all of elementary school, K-6, was 32 students. And there are a lot of amazing success stories. And there are differences of opinion especially with the littler children. Is this an advantage to have a small class size? I think if we can do it, it's great, because California class sizes are much bigger than most of the other country, rest of the other states in the country. We also have 6 million students too. So we have different issues just because of our sheer size. So I think the state of education, I think, is very good. You're gonna find within almost any district, unless it's very tiny, that you're gonna find ranges. Some schools, the students in some schools perform better than others. I hate to say it's some schools, because the demographics of some schools, the socioeconomics of some schools are different from others.
Yeah.
You've been on the school board for how long now?
It'll be 12 years in December.
Okay, and through that time you've had a number of different superintendents of schools. Two or three? Okay.
No, just 2, Ron and Gary,
Okay, and then you have another one now, Dr. Sue.
in a year.
Tell us a little bit more about the reasons on hiring her, and do you think that was the right choice to make for the school board at this time, or do you think you guys should have gone out and looked for another one?
No, for a lot of reasons, because I've been at the other point of it when Ron Barnes told us he was going to retire earlier than he had planned because of this family thing and health of elderly parents, his wife's parents. At that point, we felt, okay, it's good, let's do a nationwide search. We had the money to do it because it is costly. And we didn't have, Gary was there at the time, but he'd only been deputy superintendent for a few years because Harold Horchover had been deputy sup with Ron for a while. And then he had some health issues, which fortunately ended up not being serious health issues. So we figured, let's open this up. And we got some amazing candidates. Gary ended up being the absolute best candidate. This time, by July 1st of next year, Mary will have served as deputy superintendent with Gary for 6 years. There are lots of superintendents that are never in their positions 6 years. Their partnership and relationship is amazing. Mary can and do anything that Gary does. It just depends what I'm calling about. Sometimes Mary's the front person. I think the decision was the right decision. I think it was the only way to go at this point. Number one, fiscally, why spend $20,000 or $30,000 when you have somebody sitting there, kitty corner across the hallway from the superintendent, who can the only difference is her title, and she's going to be moving from here to here, physically, to a larger office and a different desk. She has the experience. She's been with the district a long time. She has the experience, she has the demeanor, she has the respect of teachers, employees, employee groups. She has such great community exposure because of other things with the chamber and other things, Chamber Rotary that she's been involved in. And to be very honest, that if we didn't consider her and make the offer to her, we would have lost her, because we know she is a very highly sought after person.
That's what Maynard.
That's what Maynard
Maynard
is.
said.
We're hearing that word, it's a repeat here, but we have to ask the question anyway.
Right.
Let me ask you about.
She's amazing. I just think she's
Well,
an amazing person.
Can I interject something? What about her replacement as deputy?
That is a complete unknown, and that will be up to her. We only hire the
So
superintendent.
you're gonna wait until she takes
Oh,
office?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Do you think that there is too many administrators at ABC Unified School District?
No, we are so lean on administrators and the supervisorial level, well, principals, of course, you have a principal for each school. The state has a formula. I don't know what the formula is, but they have some formula based on your number of sites and number of students and all of that. And I guess, the size of everything else that you do. They come up with a formula and they say, okay, for your size district, you don't have to, but you could have, and it wouldn't be out of line, X number of administrators, supervisors, directors, including principals, and I believe it includes assistant principals. Not sure about counselors, but assistant principals for high schools and middle schools.